Hey everyone, welcome back to another AskGN. As always, leave your questions in the comments section below to be considered for the next episodes of AskGN. We also have a bonus episode on patreon.com/gamersnexus, and we're shooting 3 total videos for AskGN today, 2 of which will be going live on the main channel and 1 on the Patreon channel. Final note here before we get started, we also have a brand new limited edition shirt. Once these are sold, that's it, they're gone, we're not making any more. So this is a foil print GN Teardown logo shirt. We made this shirt design last year for our 10-year anniversary in business. I started the site around 2007, working on it then, and have been working on it ever since. So that was our 10-year anniversary design. We still sell it, but we're making a special foil version, which is just shiny and kind of awesome in general. Has completely custom measurements for all the sleeving and everything else on the shirt. Really high quality cotton, all that stuff. Anyway, if you want to pick one up, you can pre-order it on store.gamersnexus.net. Once they're gone, they're gone. We're not making any more, but we are trying to figure out, obviously, how many of each size to make. So hence the pre-order. Be a little bit till they're out, because we do need to figure out how many of you are ordering which sizes. Anyway, that's over there if you want it. And just consider this section of me talking the ad for this video, because we won't place one otherwise. If you want any other items on the store, we are adding more and more things there, again, to try and continue distancing ourselves from manufacturer advertisers, for a focus on remaining completely non-biased and saying whatever the hell I want to say on camera. So yeah, we have cool stuff. We have the Modmat, which is 4 feet by 2 feet, modding surface, anti-static, really high quality materials, has a print on it for 1, awesome branding, and 2, useful features like wiring guides and stuff like that, a grid for GPU teardowns. And we also have our new shirt design over there, and then the teardown crystals that we gave away as awards at Computex. So that's the ad for this one. Let's roll into the questions. First one, I'm gonna have to try and keep my blood pressure low on. This is from Nory, Baja Blast Freeze Shill on Discord, from the Patreon Discord. Nory asks, GN staff, thoughts on TechTuber business practices being blasted over Twitter. So this is about something that was going on actually the morning that I was waking up early to get on a train to go to the airport in Japan to come home and sit on a plane for like 20 hours. So that day, basically, there was a tweet which has since, I don't know if it was removed or what, but definitely the user posted public apologies to us specifically, and I think to a couple of other people. But there was a tweet saying that basically YouTubers are paid to visit the booths at Computex. All the coverage you see is basically fake. They are all paid to do it, and that they learned this by seeing actual invoices. Well, there's a reason they apologized to us, and a couple of other things happened behind the scenes after we got involved with it, because it was bullshit. But let's go over the basics here. First of all, the original tweet went up pretty early in the morning in Japan when I was waking up, so we had no time to make a proper response then. And what we did was I spent 20 hours on planes figuring out what happened, what was said, who said what, and contacting those individuals privately and getting the matter mostly resolved. Not entirely to my liking, but we'll talk about that in a moment. There, again, was a public apology posted to us, and anyway, what happened was this. Basically, an individual who is now formerly employed, as I understand it, at a PR company spread outright lies about Gamers Nexus and other media outlets to an individual on Twitter who then shared that stuff. I believe the individual from the PR company also shared this with video cards and maybe other rumor mill sites, but I'm not sure who precisely was the messenger there versus the messenger versus who was just passing on information they heard secondhand or whatever. Anyway, formerly employed at a PR company, and the things they said were extremely offensive for a number of reasons. So we've seen the private conversations, and basically what it boils down to is this individual had their feelings hurt because I did not go to their party at Computex. So let's talk about how Gamers Nexus, just briefly, talk about how we make money in some of the ways we do, how we specifically and explicitly do not make money because I find it offensively unethical, and also talk about my stance on parties in the industry. First of all, industry parties are a complete waste of my time, and I don't go. So there's a reason I didn't go to this individual's party at Computex, because I hate them and I find them a waste of time. Because when we go to an event, I am not there, especially if it's in another country, to go hang out with people in the industry and drink alcohol or eat or whatever they want to do. I might go to dinner every now and then. I might go hang out with like Paul or Kyle or people I find agreeable. But the companies, we meet with them at their booth or their suite, unpaid. I don't charge for that because I find that unethical. We meet them at their booth or their suite, and we talk to them there, and we cover the product. And that's really the end of the transaction. I don't do extra events or extracurricular activities if I can avoid it, because I'm there to work. And when we're there, first of all, my team doesn't care about those either. So let me give you an example of how the day works at a convention. Wake up at like 6 or 7 a.m., start working on yesterday's content or the schedule for today. Go to the show from basically 8 or so in the morning, maybe 9, until like 5 or 6. And then we'll break for food. We often skip lunch, bring it with us. Break for food at that point, go back to the room and spend the entire rest of the night editing. Obviously, if my team members want to go somewhere, get out, escape for a little bit, I'm fine with that. But certainly no one wants to waste their time at a loud venue with people that, I mean, frankly, yeah, I like a lot of people I work with in the industry, but I don't want to go to a bar and hang out with you after we've just spent 12 hours on a convention floor shooting videos. I really don't. And it's not personal. It's just that we're there to work, and a lot of the work is editing all of the content. So we spend 12 hours shooting it during the day, better go back and produce it in the suite afterwards. Otherwise, what the hell are we doing there? So that's my stance on parties. Now, my stance on charging for booths. We do not do it. I don't really have an opinion on other people who do, but I'm speaking for Gamers Nexus. We do not charge to visit a booth. I have several conversations, including conversations with this company and this individual, where we say we don't charge to visit a booth. We will sell standard advertising. So you see these in videos. We didn't have one for this one because I advertised this, but typically it's within the first minute or so. I'll say this video is brought to you by the company. It's very clearly disclosed as an ad, and we advertise their product. And I try also to not advertise shit. So that's another, we have pretty high standards for advertisements. We've turned down a whole hell of a lot of them this year. SCD keys, all those types of places. I bounce those almost daily. And I'm not afraid to tell them, you know, let me know when you have something that's not garbage or a scam, and we'll consider advertising it. So very high standards. That's why I found it so offensive that this individual seemed to really specifically hate us. But it seemed like it was a personal thing from what I learned. So anyway, the individual, the company employee, further stated that YouTubers, quote, disgust him, and that the person, former employee, quote, just wants people to be honest. So let me be honest then with you. If you want me to visit your booth, stop representing shitty products and maybe don't be an asshole. Because here's the thing, if you have something worth seeing, we will go out of our way to cover it. Normally the first 2 days I book them solid. We can't escape, very little time on the schedule to do anything else. But at Computex I have 2 teams of 2. We split up sometimes. And one of the team's jobs is, the other team is to be a recon group. Come back at the end of the day, 1, 2, whatever, tell me what's cool, and we'll go out of our way and cover it as soon as we possibly can. And that's the whole thing with being an outlet that prides itself on reporting and on facts and on journalism, is that we go out of our way to cover things that are really cool or maybe need to be covered because they are unethical or something like that. Like the 28-core demo that I rather publicly talked against during Computex. So that's all that it takes. Have something that's worth seeing. If you feel like you have to pay people to go to the booth, there's a serious problem with the products you're representing. And unfortunately for you, we don't accept money to go to booths. So even that's not enough, even though this person seemed to think that's what we require. The amount of booths, I'll just point out, that we saw at Computex, if we charged to go to those, I'd have so much money, but we don't. And we actually operate on pretty slim margins overall. There's a reason we're in my house right now. So that's kind of how I look at a lot of this stuff. I mean, yeah, we've contacted the PR agency. We have demanded a public apology for their employees' egregious actions and gross incompetence, in my opinion. The company has privately and profusely apologized, but they have shown cowardice every time we've asked for a public apology, and so they've backed out of it. Out of pure respect, I am not going to name the company, its owner, or the employee involved, but I can say that we found their actions incredibly offensive. We will never be working with that company again, and we will not work with any of their active clients or future clients, and that's just how it's going to be. If you're going to, you know, the individual acting under the company, although apparently in a private conversation, clearly had it out for me and other YouTubers, and they completely spread lies. They had no idea what they were talking about. They just really seemed upset that people didn't go visit their booth, whoever they were representing, or go to their party, which is a waste of time for anyone, not just that person. All of them are a waste of my time because I'm there to make cool videos for you guys to watch, not to go waste 3 hours somewhere else with people I already saw all day for videos. So anyway, ironically, the company representative even suggested that we'd all make more money if we just let this go and move on and don't ask for a public apology. You know, saying things like, media are all shills and require money to visit booths, paraphrased, and then hiding behind a promise of everyone just making more money if we let it go. Where do you see the disconnect? Do you see the irony? I'm not in it for the money. I'd make a lot more of it if I had a normal job working for someone else. I'll tell you that right now. So anyway, my thoughts on it, Nory, thank you for the question, are that the business practices being discussed, particularly regarding Gamers Nexus, because I can only speak on behalf of myself. I don't know what the other guys really do. But our business practices are simple. Make cool stuff and we'll come see your booth. If you want to be an advertiser, we welcome it. Please have a good product to advertise. We'd be happy to run ads for you, but we never charge to visit booths, and that's the way it is. And also, for the record, 2 of our advertisers during Computex, we did not even visit. I think at least one of them, if not both, didn't even have a booth at the show. So those were ads sold for like the month of June, and they were placed in the month of June, and that's how it worked. Anyway, also Computex costs a hell of a lot of money, more than you can imagine. So next question, real question time. Premium Lagg, I kind of wanted to just get that off my chest because it's been bothering me, and I've been trying to work with the company privately and saying, like, you know, you should make this right and post an apology, but they won't do it. So I'll give you that much publicly, and if they give me further problems, I guess, I don't know, maybe we'll talk again, but whatever. It's kind of water under the bridge at this point. Jay did a video, Linus's team talked about it on WAN Show. We were traveling when all this was going down, and I thought, well, now that I've had time to talk to everyone and give them a chance privately, we'll talk about it a bit publicly and just make it very clear how GN makes money, because it's important. And also, other modes we make money, a significant amount of our money is from Patreon, patreon.com/gamersnexus. A very large amount is from our store now at store.gamersnexus.net. The reason for those 2 avenues is so that I can reduce reliance on vendors for advertising money. And we target people like Dollar Shave Club, for example, who don't make products we review, because it actually makes a lot of sense as an advertiser to review things that don't give you ad money, of course. So anyway, we've got a strategy to move away from that kind of stuff. We still obviously depend on it a bit, but we're very careful about who we choose as our advertisers, what they're giving us money for, and of course, trying to create a wall between the editorial side and the advertising side. I've got a guy on our team who does all the ad reporting for us, and that isolates me from it so that I don't have any of that in my mind when I'm reviewing a product. As made obvious, because we have advertisers whom we've also reviewed negatively for their products recently. Anyway, Premium Lagg says, okay, this might be a stupid question, but I need to ask it. I'm actually really excited for this after the last question. Why is it that GPU drivers have to optimize for a game? Surely the drivers are there for developers to access the hardware and not for the hardware to support the game. I don't understand. This is a fantastic question, Premium Lagg, and allow me to elaborate. So, drivers are really interesting. They are incredibly complex pieces of software that interface between the GPU and the game. And I think I'm particularly excited about this question because it's actually a hardware topic and not bullshit drama in the industry. So with drivers, the cool thing is that for DirectX 11 in particular, basically all of the optimization stuff before a game comes out, a lot of that falls on AMD and Nvidia, maybe to some extent Intel, but very, very little. So AMD and Nvidia have experts at their companies for building drivers around how a game works. And they'll actually have to build for shaders individually for a game to execute the shaders and the game's graphics in a way that work well on their hardware, AMD or Nvidia hardware. And this is because they have the lowest level access to the device, the GPU, through the driver. It's as close to the metal, as we say, as you can get. It's as close to that piece of silicon as you can get. The game developer is sitting behind a giant wall. It's called an abstraction layer, and that abstraction layer is the API. DirectX 12 and Vulkan allow the developers to get way closer to the metal, to the silicon, than DirectX 11 does. And so in modern scenarios with properly executed DirectX 12 or Vulkan APIs, the developers actually bear the responsibility that the driver vendors used to bear. And that is really difficult for developers to take on along with all of their other responsibilities, which is why you see so little proper Vulkan adoption. It takes very technical people, and it takes extra team members who aren't under the same crunch to just get the game done. Because optimization's not, first of all, it takes years to make a game. Optimization's not necessarily in the forefront of everyone's mind. And doing it especially for an API when they can just use DirectX 11 or wrap it with DX12 that seems like a much more agreeable approach if you have time or financial constraints. So why then do GPU drivers have to optimize for the game? Well, DirectX 11, that is the closest you can get to the GPU silicon, because the developers they have that barrier between them and the GPU. And so the driver has to pick up all the slack to answer that question. Now, as for DirectX 12 or Vulkan, the drivers are still important, but less so. So now what used to be done by driver teams is hopefully going to be done by engine teams going forward. And Nvidia and AMD dispatch engineers to major companies to help them optimize their games now for DirectX 12 and Vulkan because of this difference and the dichotomy of where development is happening these days, with modern APIs more or less requiring more software-side game-specific or engine-specific optimizations rather than driver-specific things. So every game behaves differently. Developers program them differently. The GPUs from Nvidia and AMD are very different as well in a lot of ways, and they're similar in others, but their architectures are different. And so the way shaders execute or the way shaders are processed, I should say, on each device are going to vary game to game depending on how it's programmed. And so the driver engineers have to fix it a lot of the time because the game developers might not have that insight. They don't make the hardware, they don't know. But also they're under huge time constraints to get a product done, a game, and get it out the door. And if you're now asking them to do what driver developers have decades of experience doing, that's a lot. That's a whole lot of extra burden. So I hope that answers your question decently, but basically it's a matter of where is the wall between the software developer and the hardware, and then who picks up the slack from there. Hopefully that answers it. Great question though. If any of you have more questions like that, please ask them. I love those types of technical questions. Next one, CSDN says, "Hey Steve, for the i9 you delidded, what were the non-conductive clear nail polishes that you found? What method did you use to find out they were non-conductive? Set up a circuit with a voltmeter and put an anode and cathode in the nail polish and look for a current flow." Actually, no, that's a brilliant idea. My approach was apply the nail polish and see if it dies or shorts something. And so that worked for me. Now, this is what I use. I actually don't know what it is. What is it called? Argan oil formula, color therapy, something like that. So the thing is, I don't just assume this is always going to be good, because I am positive these formulas change all the time based on price of chemicals and stuff. So who knows, the next round of this could actually be detrimental. But let me read to you something I've read in the past. This is from VSG of Thermal Bench, who explained to me once why certain nail polishes work as a protection from short-circuiting versus liquid metal, and others don't. So VSG previously said, nail polish typically has nitrocellulose or another functionalized cellulose in it, which forms a thin, stable film without a gap over items such as fingernails or the capacitors you used it over. And alkyl acetate helps move it into place and then promptly evaporates, leaving behind just the thin film. Some nail polish formulations have benzene derivatives and, excuse my pronunciation here, toluene, I don't know, Toluene is a prime candidate used by some companies, which does a similar job as nitrocellulose. Look at the composition before buying or using these, as the toluene isn't nice to play with even at lower concentrations. So if you need some guidelines, that's it. It's got some, just play that back. It's got some information on chemicals that are unfavorable for delidded components. Also, there are more professional products you could use, but I mean, I took that because it was around already. So if you've got someone who uses nail polish in the house, it kind of makes it a bit easier. Next one is Brad, who says, what kind of effect do your Modmat product placement pieces have on Modmat sales? Do you see a big spike versus episodes that don't do anything for them? So this question would be a great example of that. Actually, so it's yes, a bit. There's a reason that I try to mention them, because I mean, they're really expensive to make, and I like to keep moving them, obviously, to people who, the customers have loved these things. And as we've gotten better at manufacturing them, we've started making more. And so whenever I mention it, I do try to monitor the sales performance, as you're asking, and there is an impact. Some days, some episodes, maybe we'll see 1 or 2 extra sales, and some of them we see a lot more. It just depends on to what extent the Modmat was discussed, which is on store.nexus.net. If you want to pick it up for a building surface that's really ultra high quality, we think it's the best on the market for a Modmat. Anyway, it depends, but yes, the product sales are becoming a part of our business that we're very proud of, because we are starting to focus more and more on functional products, things outside of cool shirts, although we do those too, stuff outside of sticking a logo on things, because I think we can provide a great service, and we can make cool products, and it will allow us to continue to do what we do with less dependence, again, on sort of the first-party providers of the products we review. So yeah, it does impact sales. Sometimes it's very modest, not a big deal. Other times it can actually be extremely helpful. So it all just depends on kind of the context. Next one. Chrisley Bear 92, good morning. Finally found time to join support. With all the Nvidia rumors flying around, I thought I'd have a question about water cooling cards. Basically, this question is, if you're water cooling a card on an open loop, an aftermarket card versus Founders Edition, is there a reasonable difference in performance? And PCBs can be different. The VRMs can be different between them. Let's assume you find something compatible for the aftermarket card you're looking at. As long as you have compatibility, reference is easiest to work with. There are a lot of them, they sort of one size fits all, but if you find compatibility on a really good PCB like a Gaming X or something like that, then potential advantages might be, although not always, potentially lower VRM thermals under a heavier overclock if the VRM's better or spreads heat over a wider area, potentially more stable frequency at a very high-end overclock. But ultimately, with Nvidia cards, you're pretty restricted on voltage, so you can't push that much. And the silicon quality itself is more of a distinction between performance than anything else. So we could take a Founders Edition card and like a Gaming X that I have over here just by coincidence, and I've got an Asus one over there too, but take either one of these cards versus a Founders Edition, and it's possible that the more expensive aftermarket card actually overclocks worse, or it's possible the reference card overclocks worse. And that just comes down to how good is the particular piece of silicon on that card. And unfortunately, for as good as these aftermarket designs are, a lot of the time the GPU quality itself is what dictates performance. So it doesn't matter a whole lot. Once you're liquid cooling it, you've taken care of pretty much everything that these advanced coolers do, which is perform quiet and cool under heavier loads, where the reference cards really struggle with that. But if you're liquid cooling it, you've solved that. So it can matter, but because we're limited on voltage and BIOS mods and stuff like that, the extent to which it matters is limited. Let me kind of limit this here too while we're at it. So a couple more quickly. Nory, Baja Blast Freeze Shill says, how come you guys didn't stream on Twitch? Don't stream on Twitch, i.e. Twitch and YouTube at the same time. So you have expanded platform coverage. We're considering it very strongly. It's a good move for diversifying our viewership and revenue in case something happens to one of the two platforms. So we are certainly considering it. And Nory also asked, after your travels to Tokyo, tech-wise, what is something that Tokyo has that you wish you had back home? I think I can speak for our whole team when I say floor 6 of whatever store we were in Akihabara, because it just had all kinds of like, floor 2 was filled with technology. The prices were not good, But it's so cool just to see that stuff in person, because sometimes, you know, you work on this stuff, sometimes you just want to go spend an hour and bum around in a store and look at things, which is why stores go out of business, because no one buys anything, at least in the US. But Floor 6 had this amazing selection of just kind of nerdy toys and things. Felt like I was a kid again, so I'd love to have something like that back home. That's it for this one. It's probably a bit long because of the first question, but I'm glad that I got to say all of that now. Thank you for watching. As always, subscribe for more. Go to patreon.com/gamersnexus to grab our bonus episode. Go to store.gamersnexus.net to pick up a limited edition foil GN Teardown shirt. It's an anniversary edition. Thank you for watching. I'll see you all next time.